I am going to explain you about software development lifecycle. Before explaining you about the software development lifecycle, you need to understand why you need the software development lifecycle. The software development lifecycle helps you to understand how a software start its development from its initial phase to final phase. For example, you imagine that you are going to construct a new house. So before constructing a new house, what are all the things that you will do before construction? Phase 1, which is said to be planning. In the planning phase, you will start to plan about the budget. You will start to plan about the total square feet needed for constructing a new house and what are all the risks associated if you are applying for a personal loan. Then you will enter into the next phase called requirement gathering phase or requirement analysis phase. In this phase, you will start to meet different team heads that might include a building contractor, an electrician, or a plumber, and you will start to discuss more about the requirements with each team and you will start to plan more in details. Then you will move into the next phase called design phase. In the design phase, you will start to consult different civil engineers for getting various plans to visualize the appearance of your planning house. After getting the blueprint of your house, you will enter into the next phase called development phase. In the development phase, you will start to construct, which means you will start to develop and implement the things what you have discussed or what you have planned already. Finally, once after the development and implementation, your house will be ready for housewarming ceremony. From this example, you can understand how constructing a new house passes through various stages starting from its scrap to its final form of your planned house. Suppose in future if you want to alter or if you want to extend, it is possible to do with the help of the existing plan. Thus, by taking this real-time comparison, I made you clear in understanding the basic concepts involved in the software development lifecycle. It's time for you to understand more about software development lifecycle and its importance. Generally, the software development lifecycle consists of 7 phases starting from the initial phase of planning phase, requirement analysis phase, design phase, coding and implementation phase, testing phase, deployment phase, and finally it ends with maintenance phase. Now let me discuss more about each and every phases. Now I am going to take a case study for making you to understand a software development process. The name of the case study is Facebook application. You imagine that you are going to create a new application called Facebook application. Planning phase, the customer together with the project team leader will go for the further discussion. They will plan further for having a home page in which the home page may have some functionalities like user registration for entering into that Facebook application or login and logout. Team lead will also inform the client at later stage if needed new features and requirements can be added. Then entering into the requirement analysis phase, the customer and the whole team members of the entire project will go for further discussion. They will analyze the various requirements. The team members or the team may be operational team, developing team, testing team along with the team lead. So they will further define the requirements like user registration, login and logout. they will plan what are all the things that can be put together under these three things. Like suppose if I am taking the user registration functionality, it can have an option like username field, password field, and checkbox to accept the terms and condition, and finally the submit button. Suppose if I am pressing the submit button, it should save the user information in the database. Then going to the login functionality, the login functionality will have fields like username and password with submit button. Suppose if I am logging in through the username and password, and if I am submitting the password to the application, it should read the existing user from the database. And finally the logout option. So the logout option will have a button like logout. Suppose after getting logged out, it should clear my session from the browser to prevent my account theft. Thus my project will enter into the next phase like design phase once after all the final requirements are analyzed by each and every team members of the project. In the design phase, they will think about the various layouts that they can have for the project, color schemes, web page designs, what programmings that can be used, what interface that they can add, what will be the business rule, whether it will support mobile phones, whether it will support various browser, and how the relationships can be accomplished with the various databases. So after answering all these questions, they will enter into the design phase. In the design phase, finally they will produce an architect model of the entire project in which all the modules will be defined. So in the design phase, they can make use of various diagrams in the form of UML diagram. So UML is nothing but unified modeling language. It is not a programming language, it is a modeling language through which you can visualize your entire project. Generally, the UML diagrams are use case diagram, class diagram, sequence diagram, communication or collaboration diagram, package diagram, deployment diagram, and finally it can be a component diagram. So with the help of any of these diagrams, the project can be visualized. So after completing the design phase, the project will enter into the coding and implementation phase, in which the coder or developer will play an important role because he will be involved in developing the coding part of the entire project. Then it will enter into the testing phase, where the tester will analyze all the requirements of the client and he will create various test case analysis, and finally he will start to test all the test cases. Then the tester will test the user ability of the application and check how things comes close together. Suppose in between, if he is finding any flaws or bugs in the application, he will inform the various phases which involved in developing the projects, and thus it helps to redesign the entire process. After completing all these phases, then it will enters into the deployment phase, which is a most important phase, because only in this phase the projects will enter into the production stage. Once it has completed deployment, it will starts to provide a link like www.facebook.com. Finally, the application will go live to the users. Once released, it needs to be maintained properly. So it will enter into the next phase called maintenance phase. Suppose when the application became successful, with millions of people started to logging into the application, it needs to be maintained properly without bringing down the application. Now you can ask a question, why it needs to be maintained or what you needs to maintain. the answer for your first question, why you need to maintain. Suppose if millions of people start to use the application at the same time, the performance of the application should not go down, and what it needs to be maintained for such thing not to happen, you need to monitor the server, you need to monitor the load and stress. So enough arrangement has to be done with the servers and databases. Thus the maintenance phase involves or needs a lot of stuffs. So even after the production or even after the release, chances for getting bugs are possible. For such case, the user will communicate the production support either through phone call or through email. This will help the production team to investigate about the issues that the customers or the end users or the clients are facing. One last thing to say is, even after the maintenance phase, new features may come through, new requirements may come through. So if it is going to be like that, we should restart the entire whole process again, and we will be able to get new things with our existing application. With this, I would like to conclude this is more enough for the beginner to understand about the software development life cycle and its various phases. Finally, I would like to thank you for your patience shown in listening the whole presentation, and I hope this will help you to understand the upcoming presentations. Thank you once again.